Welcome back, you impossible paradoxes, you walking contradictions that make invisible structures hesitate. There are some people in this world who never seem fully fit into the roles that were prepared for them. It is not because they refuse those roles in an obvious way, and it is not because they openly fight against them. Something quieter than that. It is as if they exist slightly outside the expectations that were designed long before they arrived. They go through the same environments as everyone else. They stand in the same places. They hear the same instructions, but somehow their presence does not completely blend into the structure around them. You may have felt this at some point in your own life, not through loud arguments or dramatic events, but through small, quiet moments. Moments when people expected you to react in a certain way, to seek something, to chase something, or to adjust yourself. And instead you simply remained as you were. You did not force anything. You did not pretend. You did not move just because movement was expected. Lands. There is no physical room somewhere in the world where decisions about people are officially announced. There is no visible group of leaders sitting at a table deciding who belongs and who does not. But even without that, systems exist everywhere. These systems are built into habits, traditions, routines, and silent agreements between people. They shape how people behave, how they measure success, how they decide who is important, and how they decide who should follow and who should lead. Most people enter these systems without even realizing it. They grow up learning what is considered valuable. They learn to chase recognition, to seek approval, and to measure themselves based on external standards. They follow the pathways that were already built, believing that if they move correctly, they will eventually reach a place where they feel secure and accepted. Pandia. But sometimes, someone appears who does not move according to those invisible pathways. This person does not chase approval in the same way. They do not panic when recognition is missing. They do not feel the same urgency to prove themselves constantly. They stand where they are, not waiting for someone else to assign them value. And this creates something unusual. It creates uncertainty, not because they are doing anything wrong, but because systems are built to respond to predictable behavior. Systems understand ambition. Systems understand fear. Systems understand the human desire to belong and to be accepted. These motivations are easy to recognize, and because they are easy to recognize, they are easy to influence. If you offer someone status, they move closer. If you threaten exclusion, they pull back. If you ignore someone, they often adjust themselves to regain attention. Lan. But when a person stops depending on those external signals, the situation becomes different. At first, nothing dramatic happens. The system does not react loudly. It simply observes. It watches quietly. It tries to understand the person. It looks for familiar patterns. It tries to determine what motivates them. It waits to see if they will eventually seek approval, or seek protection, or seek elevation like everyone else. But when those motivations do not appear clearly, there is hesitation. Not because the system is weak, but because it was never designed to handle people who are internally stable. Most structures depend on psychological participation. This means people must internally agree that their value depends on external recognition. When someone withdraws that agreement, even silently, something changes. They may still live in the same environment. They may still work, interact, and contribute like everyone else. But inside, they are no longer dependent on outside confirmation to feel complete. This creates a quiet kind of independence. It is not loud. It is not rebellious. It does not need to announce itself. It simply exists. Some environments respond to this independence by trying to bring the person closer. They may offer opportunities, roles, or visibility, Sometimes this is done with good intentions. Sometimes people genuinely want to understand and include someone who appears steady and grounded. Other times, it is simply an attempt to align that person with familiar structures, because familiarity creates comfort. But there is another response that can happen as well. Not confrontation, not rejection, something quieter than both: silence. The person is neither highlighted nor opposed. They are simply not amplified. Silence can be a powerful tool. It often neutralizes people who depend on attention to maintain their sense of self. When someone relies on applause, silence can feel painful. When someone relies on validation, silence can feel like rejection. It can create doubt, insecurity, and the urge to change in order to regain recognition. But when someone has already built their identity internally, silence loses its power. It does not weaken them. It does not redirect them. It does not define them. They continue moving forward in the same direction, with the same stability. Their sense of self remains intact because it was never built on external approval in the first place. This is where true autonomy begins. It does not begin with rebellion. It does not begin with resistance or defiance. It begins with independence, a quiet independence that does not need permission, a steady independence that does not depend on recognition. This kind of stability cannot be given by others, and it cannot be taken away by others. It comes from within. Most people spend many years waiting for confirmation that they are allowed to become who they already are. They wait for someone to approve them. They wait for an opportunity to prove themselves. They wait for a signal that they are finally ready. But readiness was never something that could be given by the outside world. It was always something that had to be realized internally. The moment a person understands this, something changes permanently. They stop negotiating their existence with the world around them. They stop shrinking themselves to fit expectations that were never designed for them. They stop measuring their worth using unstable standards that constantly change. Instead, they begin to move differently. Not with arrogance, not with anger, not with the need to prove anything, but with certainty. A quiet certainty that does not demand attention. A certainty that does not need to explain itself, because they are no longer waiting for permission to exist. They are no longer waiting to be told who they are allowed to be. They simply exist, fully and completely, as themselves. When you slowly stepped back from needing everyone to agree with you, nothing dramatic happened on the outside. There was no sudden event, no confrontation, and no moment where everything visibly changed. You did not stand in front of people and announce that you were different now. You did not explain yourself or try to prove anything. You simply stopped placing your sense of worth and identity into systems and opinions that were never truly capable of defining who you were. From the outside, your life may have looked exactly the same. You were still present. You were still interacting with people. You were still moving through your daily routines. But inside, something important shifted. Something permanent. This shift happened because the moment a person stops depending on outside permission to feel complete, their inner balance changes. Things that once felt powerful and unshakable begin to look different. You start to see that many structures and expectations were not permanent forces, but conditional ones. They existed because people believed in them, followed them, and reinforced them over time. This realization does not break the world around you, and it does not create chaos. Instead, it brings clarity. You begin to understand that much of the pressure people feel every day does not come from physical force. It comes from expectation. It comes from habit. It comes from the quiet belief that approval must come from somewhere outside in order to feel real and valid. Once that belief begins to fade, the pressure begins to fade with it. What remains is not emptiness, but simplicity. What remains is you, as you are, without constant modification. You are not above anyone else, and you are not separated from the world. You are still part of everything, but you are present in a way that no longer requires constant adjustment just to feel secure. This creates a calm feeling that is difficult to fully explain. You no longer enter spaces worrying about who you need to become in order to fit in. You no longer carefully rehearse your words out of fear that one mistake will change how people see you. You speak more naturally, and you listen more openly, without constantly calculating your position in every moment. And as time passes, the need to perform slowly begins to disappear. This does not mean that everything you did before was fake. It simply means that performance is no longer necessary for you to feel safe or accepted. Your actions begin to come from alignment instead of reaction. You respond from clarity instead of pressure. You begin to trust yourself instead of constantly questioning whether you are enough. This does not make you distant or disconnected from others. Instead, it makes you stable. Some people may not understand this change immediately. Some may think you have become more distant. Others may think you have become more confident. But in truth, it is neither distance nor performance. It is simply the absence of inner conflict. When you are no longer fighting inside yourself, your energy becomes steady. You are no longer divided between who you truly are and who you think you must pretend to be. This steadiness creates a quiet kind of strength. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not try to dominate anything. It is simply reliable. It remains steady whether people approve of you or not. It remains steady whether people notice you or ignore you. Over time, you may realize that situations which once caused stress, anxiety, or tension no longer affect you in the same way. This is not because you stopped caring. It is because your identity is no longer attached to those outcomes. You still care about your life. You still participate. You still connect with people and move forward. But your sense of self is no longer controlled by every reaction around you. Plemians. This change is not withdrawal from the world. It is clarity about your place within it. You begin to understand the difference between your responsibility and other people's opinions. You understand where your control ends and where external perception begins. And when that boundary becomes clear, something important becomes possible. You begin to experience freedom, not a loud or dramatic freedom that separates you from others, but a quiet freedom that allows you to exist without constantly correcting yourself just to fit expectations. You no longer wait for invisible approval before moving forward. You no longer pause your life while waiting for confirmation that you are allowed to be yourself. Mendy, in the end, nothing outside of you was ever capable of giving you true legitimacy. External things could only reflect what was already there. They were like mirrors. They could show you an image, but they could not create the source. The source was always within you. Not the version of you shaped by fear, not the version of you adjusted to gain acceptance, but the version of you that remained underneath everything else. That version was never lost. It was only waiting for the moment when you stopped asking for permission to be it. Lend. You stopped chasing spaces that quietly demanded you reduce yourself in order to belong. Not because you were rejected, and not because you were unwilling to participate, but because you began to recognize the cost of constant adjustment. Every time you forced yourself to fit into expectations that did not reflect who you truly were, Something essential waited patiently for you to notice. And eventually, you did. You realized that belonging built on self-abandonment was never belonging at all. It was performance. It was maintenance. It was survival dressed as acceptance. So you stepped back, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. And in that quiet decision, you became something the system could not easily interpret. Not because you opposed it, but because you were no longer depending on it to define you. Believe what made this shift so profound was its simplicity. You did not announce it. You did not explain it. You did not demand that anyone understand. You simply began choosing alignment over approval. And alignment has a quiet strength to it. It does not argue. It does not persuade. It does not seek permission. It simply remains consistent. Systems, however, are built on patterns of response. They understand how to interact with ambition. They understand how to respond to fear. They understand negotiation, compromise, and even resistance. But alignment without hostility presents no obvious point of leverage. It offers nothing to push against and nothing to pull toward. It exists on its own terms. And because of that, it changes the dynamic without ever directly confronting it. Lend. The conversations around you, whether spoken or unspoken, begin to lose their clarity. Expectations that once felt fixed begin to loosen, not because they disappeared, but because you stopped reinforcing them with your emotional investment. You stopped measuring yourself. You stopped interpreting every acceptance as proof of worth and every rejection as proof of lack. Instead, you began to experience yourself as something constant, something that existed before any external evaluation and would remain regardless of it. This realization did not isolate you from the world. It grounded you within it. It allowed you to participate without surrendering yourself. It allowed you to contribute without depending on recognition to validate your presence. And this is where a deeper shift takes place. When someone is no longer driven by the need to secure their identity through external structures, their relationship with those structures, they no longer approach opportunities with quiet desperation. They no longer interpret silence as personal diminishment. They no longer chase visibility as proof that they matter. Instead, they move with intention. They choose what aligns and release what does not. This does not make them detached. It makes them clear. It makes their decisions less reactive and more deliberate. And over time, that clarity creates stability, not just externally, but internally. The symbolic rewards that once seemed so significant begin to reveal their true nature. They are not meaningless, but they are no longer foundational. They are expressions, not sources. They reflect what already exists, rather than creating it. And when you understand this, your sense of direction becomes independent of whether those rewards appear or disappear. You no longer experience progress as something granted by others. You experience it as something lived from within. This makes your path quieter, but also more resilient, because it is no longer vulnerable to sudden shifts in approval or perception. But likewise, the absence of recognition loses its power to diminish you. Silence no longer feels like erasure. It becomes neutral, becomes space. And in that space, you discover something important, that your existence was never dependent on being acknowledged to remain valid. You were never sustained by attention. You were only ever sustained by your own continuity, by your willingness to remain present in your own life, without constantly seeking confirmation that you were allowed to be there. This realization restores something many people unknowingly surrender: ownership of their own identity. Over time, this way of existing begins to feel natural rather than intentional. You no longer think about it constantly. You no longer frame it as a decision. It simply becomes your baseline. You participate where it makes sense. You disengage where it does not. You remain open without becoming dependent. You remain grounded without becoming rigid. And through this balance, you develop something far more sustainable than external validation, internal continuity. And in the end, nothing external needed to collapse for this to happen. Nothing needed to be overthrown. Nothing needed to be defeated. The only thing that changed was your relationship with yourself. You stopped treating your identity as something conditional. You stopped treating your worth as something negotiable. And in doing so, you discovered something that had always been present beneath the noise of expectation. You discovered that real stability was never something the outside world could grant or remove. It was something you built quietly, over time. Every moment you chose honesty over performance, alignment over approval, and presence over permission. And from that place, you continue forward. Not as someone seeking validation, and not as someone rejecting the world, but as someone who finally understands that their existence does not need to be negotiated in order to be real.